Om Nicho Nichanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman Tamatmastam Yenu Pashanti Diraha Tesham Shanti Shashvati Netaresham Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That one, the eternal among non-eternal things, the intelligence of the most intelligent ones, who though ever one, nevertheless fulfills the desires of the many. That one, the realized souls recognize as dwelling in their very own self. To them belong peace, and to none else. Om peace, peace, peace. Om na tatra suryabhati na chandra tarakam Nema vidyuto banti kuto yamagnihi Tvameva bantamanavati sarvam Tasya basa sarvamidam vivati. Om shantihi shantihi shantihi. There, within the innermost self of all living beings, the sun shines not, nor the moon, nor fire, nor stars, nor lightning, much less this tiny mortal flame called prana. That one light shining, all else shines. By its light all is made luminous. May that one light of pure conscious awareness enter into us and permeate us to the very core of our being. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Saha Viryam Karavavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Salutations to all, salutations to humans, salutations to the celestials, salutations to the ancestors, salutations to the gods and goddesses, salutations to the rishis, sages, seers, saints, and salutations to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, God with form, and salutations to the formless Brahman. That is what is real, what is beneficial, and what is true. It is the only reality, and we all meet here in it, despite the varying degrees of our intelligence and awakening of our spirit. The ascension of Kundalini Shakti up the chakras to our crown chakra at the top of the head, where this bird flies constantly, representing a combination of meditation and action, those two opposites which you would think would be impossible to bring together. Just like the two other yogas that we know about, jnana and bhakti, impossible to bring together in certain schools of philosophy. But that way of thinking has become a little narrow and outdated with the advent of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, whose birthday we celebrated last night in a puja in our shrine room here at the SRV Associations, which some 25 people attended and worshipped a great master, his wife, divine consort, and emanation of the Divine Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, and the great Swami Vivekananda, whose beautiful picture hangs here on our mantle, and who brought the Vedanta to us in 1893, and brought it in the form of these 4 yogas, which it's our business to synthesize or to integrate. Usually one of those 4 yogas is known to us better than the rest. Some are active, so karma yoga would be their path mainly. Some are contemplative, and meditation is theirs. And some are studious, so the jnana yoga and the wisdom is prevalent in them. And some are very devotional, of heart and mind, and so bhakti yoga is there. So you have those 4 yogas, and it's easy to break them into 2 pairs, bhakti and jnanam, which are the 2 wings of the bird, by the way, as you see here, jnana yoga, wisdom, bhakti yoga, devotion. And then tail feathers of the bird and the body. That is, tail feathers guide you. Holy Mother used to say, meditation is the rudder to your boat in this life. Whether you think you're making progress in it or not, you should still do it every day at the same time. Is through that meditation, first of all, you'll see how your mind changes constantly, and you'll know then the mind is part of Maya, and you'll want to transcend ordinary mind. And you'll want to purify the mind and get a chit shakti, and as Patanjali called it, or as Holy Mother said, a pure mind, so that one can get a transcendent mind from there. There's always steps inward in this ladder of ascension. Inward ascension, we used to call it. So the paths of yoga and the paths of action are very important. In action, they sometimes call it. Krishna has that sloka in the Gita that's most difficult to unwrap and understand. That means those who know that action and inaction and inaction in action, they truly know. So somehow we're not only to look at the 2 wings of the bird, that is, everything is to be done with love. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, if the mechanic comes and places oil in the machine every day, then it runs fine. But if he forgets to do that, then it seizes up and is ruined. So the devotion is that oil that you put into the machine of the body-mind mechanism every day to make it run smoothly. But then on the other hand, Swami Vivekananda has told us that devotion without wisdom tends to become sentimental, tends to descend into emotionalism. And so it needs to be checked with the astute mind that's been guided by the Guru, that's been steeped in the wisdom teachings that we call the Dharma or Jnana Yoga. So those 2 yogas we can look at, draw out from the integral whole and inspect very carefully. Then we're left with this how to do question, action, and then its opposite, how not to do, to go into complete inaction. And it seems to be a dichotomy. See? So we need to enter into the practice of meditation, as Holy Mother said, and do it every day, and then contrast that with our daily life, especially in the West, a busy life of Americans. And then we began to acquire a subtle taste for the art of integration. See, that basically the 2 can coexist first, and then eventually that the 2 are one, as impossible as it seems. Because they asked Holy Mother at one time, do you always keep God in mind while you work? And she said, no, how is that possible? You would think she'd say, as a master that she was, of course. But she was very honest and said, no, it's not possible. God and the world are 2 separate things. You see, they don't coexist. They only coexist like oil and water, you see, for a minute, and then they separate. So the natural separation processes is there, and the lack of that knowledge in the human mind is responsible for people falling into the clutches of Maya. and then becoming a servant of matter, see, instead of the master. Because all matter has come out of you. If there's no mind, there's no matter. If there's no matter, well, never mind. See, it doesn't matter. So, as my teacher used to say, so as long as you see matter there, as long as you see name and form marching around, as Ganeshri was just reading out of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, see, as long as you see the human form there with its two legs and its two arms, and it's engaged in action for that long, then you're going to have to remain on your guard, and you're going to have to test everything in the waters of meditation. See, that's your barometer, or she said, the rudder of your boat. I was in Hawaii a couple of years ago, where I live, and I was at the beach, and I saw this boat put out from the harbor nearby, and when it got outside the harbor about 30 or 40 feet, the whole rudder assembly fell off in the water. Someone must have taken the motor off and tried to clean it, put it back on, forgot to put the linch pins in or something. So these people just floated merrily away, waving at the crowd frantically on the beach, you see, and everyone was waving back at them. Have a nice trip. So a boat without a rudder is at the mercy of the winds, and even a sail isn't going to help, you see. So in that way, meditation is so important to daily life. We don't realize it, and then we say, well, it's not doing any good, or it's not making any change, it's not promising me what we should. But she said, do it every day at the same time. And 365 days, 365 meditations. Because if you don't do 10 or 15 of them, that's the time when God comes knocking, you see, as we said yesterday. And you also miss the opportunity to see how your mind changed, how meditation was terrible one day and then beautiful the next, and you did nothing between to warrant the change. You see how as the slokas we were just reading yesterday, how the gunas change all the time. Number one, then, it's not your fault, you see. It's just the nature of mind. And number two, you get a key as to how to control the mind, how it is possible to purify it. And so first that's called the three purifications. First you enter into purification of act and location. See, drovya shuddhi. That is, it's a sort of practice of these two put together, inaction and action. You have to act, so you act very carefully. Like a bird flying through the sky leaves no trace, you see. So that's the way you move through life. And that makes for a very dharmic lifestyle, and begins to naturally merge these two seemingly contrasting yogas in you. But then location becomes pure too. Then you feel like you're moving. First you feel like you're moving from the ashram or from your own home shrine, your own dharmic home, out into the world, and it's all confused and frantic and crazy. So you see the difference between sattva and rajas. The sattva you keep in your home, and the rajas is going out all the time out there, the frenetic activity with people running here and there like chickens with their heads cut off. They're still moving, but they lost their head. I saw that happen recently. The chicken just kept moving for about an hour, for about a minute or two afterwards, as if it still had its head, you see. Sort of reminded me of people moving about aimlessly, without any real grounding, without knowing that Brahman, the only reality, is motionless, yet there they are engaged in motion. Without knowing that Brahman, the only reality, is stable, but there they are, manifesting all sorts of acts and karmas. And without then knowing that Brahman is karmalessness and karmaless and inactive. And so we're going to have to simulate inactiveness, you see. So that's meditation, isn't it? But if you sit in meditation and your body's still, but your mind is still roving, then that's not very good practice of inaction, because the waking state is just an echo of the dream state, and vice versa. And there's always action going on in those two. And it's only when you get into deep sleep that you actually meet face to face with your formless nature. but you have to be conscious of that, which again is why you meditate. So you do take your consciousness into that state of formlessness or thoughtlessness, so that all vrittis, yoga chitta vritti nirodha, that all vrittis die away, and then you can begin to gauge the possibility of getting into union with Brahman, oneness with Brahman, so that you will know that you are God walking around on two legs and realize the Atman in you. Then action becomes a natural thing, you see, without karmas attending it. It's called colorless karma. So first you have to purify act and materials and location, dravya shuddhi, and then you have to get purity of act, you see, out there. Kriya shuddhi, it's called. Kriya shuddhi. And you have to practice going about all actions without desiring the fruits, and all the points there that you find under karma yoga. You see that Krishna tells you in the Gita. He's probably the greatest expert on how to live a life of karma yoga by following all the right tenets and rules. Then you can strive for chit shuddhi, which is the ultimate. That's purity of your thoughts. So if thoughts do occur, they occur at a very high level. If dreams do occur, they're conscious dreams, rather than what Vedanta calls the 1,000 imbecilities of the mind. I mean, you know what imbeciles are, right? Imbeciles are fools, ignorant fools, and so forth. So our dreams are rather like the 1,000 imbecilities of the mind. We don't know where they're coming from, why they're there. They don't seem to have any connection with our deeper life of the spirit, and they're rather random and hard to control. So those begin to die away, and you don't experience them then. As I said yesterday at class, if you render your waking state lucid, then your dreams will follow, and they will be rendered lucid as well. Which, by the way, is the practitioner's way. The way of the illumined are that their dreams are lucid first, and then they come out into the waking state, and that becomes lucid as a matter of course. So the luminaries are coming from a standpoint of enlightenment, and the practitioner is coming from a standpoint of trying to get enlightened, which is a necessary stage in human development, as long as you have a body-mind mechanism. But as soon as you have that first conscious death, by having lived the first conscious lifetime, then you too can emerge with a pure mind. You come into this world with a pure mind, and in the examples we've seen of that kind of mind, we find it, as the Upanishads say, marvelous, marvelous, marvelous. Those beings are the true exemplars, and they move through the world like a bird, not leaving a trace in the sky. So that's where we left yesterday on this sloka. We were talking about the 4 sensitivities and 4 attitudes, 4 beneficial and all that. I want this like this. And we finished those beautiful sayings of Holy Mother and those teachings that went with it. And that was sloka 12, because we started with sloka 9. We're in the final chapter of Svetashvatara Upanisad, which we've been studying for 2 or 3 years now. Some of the Upanishads we will go through a little quicker, but certain ones we seize, just like we did the Viveka Chudamani last period. And I think we spent 4 or 5 years going through the Viveka Chudamani, which is a lot of slokas, but I would say by going through that with you, I must have created 50 or so of these charts. There are now 250 of them, roughly, that are in existence and appearing in books that we're putting out in SRV. So going through a scripture just proves to you the infinite nature of Mother's wisdom. There's one song that sings, Mother's wisdom is infinite. It's so infinite that she doesn't even know how much there is of it. She herself, the mother of wisdom, doesn't know how much there is. So it just keeps coming forth, much like Sri Ramakrishna keeps speaking on one subject and just spreads it out. in an umbrella of teachings for hours, for days. You could go on about it. And then finally maybe change the subject and speak on another great axiom for another couple days. Non-stop, as if each day is a bardo, or each several days is a bardo, and each subject is a world. And that's what we were talking about with Gyanamatras. Each particle of wisdom in our head is a world. And when you get into it and split it, it implodes. And then you sit under a tree for 40 days and marvel at it. See how much there is in just a little particle. And it's hard to describe without bringing in the other yogas, you see. It's not just that you have this high mental samadhi, but you begin to cry. You have the bhakti with it. Then you begin to plan how you're going to teach it to humanity. So, the other yogas come in, action and meditation and so forth. And that's called direct spiritual experience. Everything Sri Ramakrishna teaches from the Gospel of Ramakrishna pretty much starts there. That's where Vedanta starts, at a sort of finishing school level, as if, you already understand all the rest of that. And we hope you've gotten over all your emotions and your various problems and concerns and issues, or that you can take them from the standpoint of a strong foundation because of your daily meditation. But now we hope you start here and take off from this position like a springboard and begin to spend hours and hours deliberating over, contemplating, ruminating about these great wisdom teachings till you find them in your own head. In books and temples vain thy search. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on, but that's not the teaching I'm trying to bring forth here. In books and temples, vain thy search, meaning books are suggesting the wisdom is in you. See, all of this has come out of your mind. The book was a thought in the author's mind first. Then the book appeared. But it all came out of his mind, and all the stuff written in the book was in his mind too. And then once he writes it, he's going, I invented something new? No. See? Or even I invented? No. New and I don't figure into it. I just came along and in yoga manifested some of Mother's infinite wisdom on the pages of a book. See? And it was all wisdom, that's living wisdom inside of you. And all you need to do is access it by meditating on those particles that are in it. That's really the crux of Jnana Yoga. And so you can bring that together with bhakti by knowing what you love and loving what you know. But then you have to put together these two very special yogas that go with it, action and inaction. In fact, they used to put karma yoga at the bottom of the rung of the four, you see, least important, like, get over it, you see. Shankara said that 100,000 acts will not give you enlightenment, so get over it. See? Well, that's true, but the facelift that karma yoga has gotten by the advent of Swami Vivekananda into the world is such that he compares it to Shruti Yukti Anubhava and then Shat Satkara. In other words, you're bringing back, by studying the scriptures, realizing them and putting them into, and by hearing them first, by studying them and realizing them, Shravana Manana Nidijasana style, then you have to bring them back into the world. See, so that's karma yoga is going to have to be necessary to do that. So karma yoga all of a sudden takes on a very high and important station, maybe the final stage of all the yogas. You basically get rid of your ignorance with knowledge, and then you can meditate, because you can't, third yoga comes in, you can't meditate very effectively if your mind still holds ignorance. You might have noticed, to quote John Dobson, see, you might have noticed that you've been meditating for 10 or 20 years and you haven't gotten anywhere. Try removing the thorn of ignorance from your mind with the thorn of deep scriptural study, and then meditate and see what happens. First you'll find all these teachings crowding in, then you'll take one, because it's a particle, and you'll split it, and boom, you see. Out of one period can come 108 Upanishads, or 250 charts can come from one of them. See, so get rid of ignorance first with knowledge. That's Jnana Yoga. And then meditate on that pure state of knowledge. That's Raja Yoga, or Dhyan Yoga they sometimes call it. And then bring it full circle into your life and apply the teachings to your life and do it all in love. That's karma and bhakti yoga. A point could be made that love started the whole thing out, you see. But it was your love of wisdom and not your love of ignorance. Because if you end up loving ignorance, then you're just a worldly person. And you're being reborn again and again in samsara. And there's no way to escape that. Eventually you have to face it off. That the human soul is not matter. As we said yesterday, water and oil don't mix. So you're going to have to rise to a noble stature and admit to yourself, I am Atma Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi. All the great sayings are the arrival point of non-duality that we're seeking and that we want to inculcate in our mind. Not in our brain, but in our mind. See, the brain will follow suit and the body will follow suit when the mind is made pure of ignorance. So if we have to sit and listen to discourses or frequent the ashrams, or more fortunate than that, sit at the feet of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa like the 16 direct disciples did for several years to get that wisdom, we'll do it. We'll focus in on it. So that sloka we left at, sloka 12 of chapter 6, 612, said, those wise beings who ever feel in their own hearts the presence of that one who is the ruler of the inactive many, and who makes the one seed manifold, to them belongs eternal happiness, to none else. And therefore, I concentrated first on those particles of this sloka, in their own hearts. And I presented to you the 4 sensitivities, the 4 beneficial attitudes, and so forth. That chart with Holy Mother on it yesterday. But now I'm concentrating on this sloka on the inactive many particles in this sloka. Therefore, I wanted to show you and start the class off in a formal way with this passive action and inaction. It's very beautiful. If we wanted to put it in music first, to sort of start with the bhakti and then go to the jnanam, it would go Pita Pitva Paramam Amritam Gitam Samsara Ragaha Hitva Hitva Sakala Kalaha Prapinim Sarda Siddhim Jatva Jatva Guru Parapadam Sarva Kalyana Rupam Natva Natva Sakala Bhuvanam Patuma Mantraya Maha. So he says, Swamiji, in a letter to one of his students that we put into song, drinking the essence of immortality, amrita, the pitva pitva parama amritam, the supreme nectar, renouncing attachment to the world and forsaking the self-serving spirit, which is the mother of all dissension, and get rid of the ego, you see. And meditating on the blessed feet of our Guru, which are the embodiment of all well-being, we invite the entire world to drink this nectar with us. It's how he wrote, you see, to his disciples in a letter. It wasn't any ordinary letter you received from Vivekananda if you were lucky to get one. See, you'd open it up and you'd already have to, put sunglasses on. You kind of filter out the mind's impurities right there and become wrapped by this sloka out of a scripture, which is his own mind. The natural way he thought was the way he spoke and the way he wrote. He didn't write books. See, somebody took down what he said and put it into books, so his books are living books. He was a walking Upanishad, walking free soul, sannyasin they call him. So in that one verse you see all of the 4 yogas there. You renounce attachment to the world, you forsake the ego, the self-serving spirit that's the mother of all dissension, you see. We begin to serve others instead of ourselves, and then all dissension goes away quickly. In other words, you've got the clashing of egos altogether. My way, no my way. Okay, if it's not my way, then the highway. Take off. And nobody ever comes together in concrescence, in amelioration, bringing everything together in a positive way, like our founder did. Marvelous how Lex Hickson, our founder of SRV, always wanted to bring people together of all different types. Doesn't matter how different they were, he'd bring them together. I was once sitting with a Christian priest once who came to attend one of our meetings. He was invited, Lex invited him, and he was really an aloof person. See, oh, Dantas, Christ is the only way. And so I left the room. Lex walked in the meeting, sat down next to this preacher who was kind of like, staying close to it. And I left the room for about 5 minutes, and I came back, and the priest was hanging on Lex, with his arms around him, like they were old buddies for lifetimes. So Lex had this marvelous ability of just reducing differences. It didn't matter if there were differences between lifestyle or religion, or even if there were differences in, intelligence or realization of the Atman. It didn't matter. It was just all inclusive. So great ideas of Vivekananda have been broadened and deepened by the presence of a few key Americans like Lex Hickson amongst us, who later became a Sufi sheikh, who became a deep Zen practitioner, and who was also practitioner of Buddhism. He had names and teachers in each of these traditions, as if he was just following up to remind people of Sri Ramakrishna's path. So this song has that. It gets rid of the mother of all dissension, which is self-servingness. You don't think of yourself anymore. You think of others, as if yourself doesn't exist, because really it doesn't. It wouldn't matter if you cut that ego-wise or philosophy-wise. The Buddhists, for instance, aren't going to admit the existence of any kind of self, not even a supreme self. They just stay away from it, you see. So self doesn't exist. Might as well just go there and just look out with these eyes and hear with these ears what is noble and uplifting, what is good and spiritual, and see beings there who are manifestations of God, as if you're nothing. See? As he was just saying in the gospel, I saw a skeleton put together in a hospital, and it was put together by bones were all put together by wires and held together like that. Well, that's what he felt like. You see, like Mother had just put him together with strings. He was like a bunch of popsicle sticks tied together with strings. See? And that's how he conducted himself around the world. See? Act, act, act. So that yoga is mentioned there, and then meditating on the blessed feet of our Guru, who is the essence, the embodiment of all well-being, the healer of the chronic disease of worldliness. He puts that in another song. The Chandala is the healer of the chronic disease of worldliness. So those kinds of musical interludes bring out the essence of the teachings too. Let's look at the rest of Sloka 12 in chapter 6 of the Svetashvatara Upanisad, this great rishi, under the auspice of this beautiful chart. Now there's Sri Ramakrishna saying at the top, rub your hands with coconut oil before opening the sticky jackfruit. Likewise, before entering into the world of action, develop and apply the practices of discrimination and meditation. Ideally, this isn't the way it happens, you might have noticed, but ideally it would be best to perfect jnana and meditation before you even walk out the door in your first lifetime. Because you would erase all the possibility for so many erroneous actions, so many mistakes, so many errors that you've committed, that we've all committed, that Vivekananda committed, according to his own admittance. They say, I would have done it all different. So it's just the world of action out there is unscrupulous. It's unscrupulous. It's inestimable. It's inscrutable. You just don't know what's going to happen, what's going to come out of left field, partially because, your past lifetimes haven't been taken into consideration, but you're a walking bag of past lifetime karma. You see, you're just walking around with your karmas on your features, and someone might not like the look of those karmas on your features. They're going to come up and karang your alles, as we say in a way. And they put you down. So, therefore, you rub your hands with the oil, coconut oil, before you open the jackfruit. That was one of his famous sayings, is that sap from the jackfruit will not stick. That you can just wash it off with water. See, so karma may be there, and this may be the world of action, and everyone's subject to it, from saint to sinner, from avatar to ant. Everyone's got to pay the karma for taking on a body to the last farthing. She said, Holy Mother, she knew about English money, because the English were there among them. But she could have said to the last rupee or the last annum, you see. So, because of that, then make sure you can wash your karmas off at the door when you come home. You see, and sit meditation immediately. That sticky jackfruit will just be washed off easily, you see. So, automatically Sri Ramakrishna is talking about this sticky path of karma yoga. Let's take Swami Vivekananda's look. If you have known the Atman as the one existence, and that nothing else exists, then for whom and for what desire do you trouble yourself? I could stop right there. See. If you just have known the Atman as the one existence, for instance, knowing that Brahman is actionless, then why am I engaging in all this fruitful and fruitless action? Then why do you trouble yourself anymore? Why don't you just be the Atman and let everything else come to your door? See? Be satisfied, be content, be desireless, and so forth. Or if you have desires left, satisfy them in the Dharma. And then he says, through Maya all this doing good came into my brain. As Maya planted it there, even in a great mind like Vivekananda. Now they are leaving me. I get more and more convinced that there is no other object in work except the purification of the mind. No other object in work than purification. Only object. It won't get you anything else. And if it'll only get you that if you do it right. To make it fit for knowledge. This world with its good and evil will go on in various forms forever. Only the evil and good will take new names and new seats. My soul is hankering after peace and rest eternal, undisturbed. So meditation would be the crowning yoga in that regard, you see. Through ignorance, I did work. I lose knowledge to get rid of ignorance. Then I remembered my true self. I fell in love with God. I meditated and merged in Him. The 4 yogas, in order, in the best way to use them. Ideally. Ideally. See? But it's not the way it's happening, is it, in this world? And this old waddled, as my teacher used to call it, this old waddled, with this Indian accent. So maybe we should clarify a little bit. There you see on one side the 8 limbs of Raja Yoga, and there you see the other, the laws of Karma Yoga. And I rendered them into 8 too, so we'd have a nice Ashtanga thing going on here. And there you see a quote from Sri Krishna on the laws of Karma Yoga side. Those who see action in inaction and inaction in action, they truly see. So that's been one of the slokas that's been stultifying minds for millennia. If you try and, it's like a Vedantic Zen koan that you run through your mind again and again until you try and somehow, as they say, put a square cube in a round hole. It doesn't seem to be fitting, but somehow it does. If you understand the laws of Karma Yoga, which are here, basically work free of desire for results. Doesn't it sound like giving up the self-serving spirit, which is the mother of all dissension? Work free of desire for results. Just do the work for the sake of the work. To that you have the right, but not the fruits, he said. Work free of karmic accrual. That is, become in knowledge or recognize that there is karma that comes from work. There's, for every action, there's a reaction. And so you're either going to do your action very carefully to minimize that reaction, or you're going to somehow get rid of the sense of agency in your mind and never ever again think, I am the doer. I am the doer. You get rid of that erroneous idea. As is instanced in that beautiful song, which Sri Ramakrishna probably was his favorite. Because he did feel, again, like he was a bunch of sticks tied together with strings. See, so how does a person feel? They feel sort of like this. Shakale tomari icha, icha mai tar tumi, tomar karma, tumi karma, loke bale kare. O Mother, you cause all to happen by thine own sweet will. Truly, you are the self-willed one and the savior of all living beings. Everyone calls work theirs, but it really all belongs to you. All work is yours, not ours. He goes on and sings, Anke bara kara kari, angure langa ogiri, hare doma brahma pada, hare kara adodam. It says, you trap the powerful elephant in the mire, but cause the lame man to scale the highest mountain. On some you bestow the highest bliss, other you hurl into the world of suffering. I am the chariot, you are the charioteer. I am the house, you are the indweller. I move as you move me, I think as you think through me. So if you can get rid of that sense of doing work and agency, you see, then you may work free of karmic accrual. The most marvelous work of all, Vivekananda, I can paraphrase him, he said, oh, how beautiful would look the work of a person who did all action for the sake of God only. How beautiful that looks, you see. So he'd met a few people that could do that, and he was one of them. And then the world around that person just vibrates, see. As I was saying, natural concrescence of human beings. They just come together in the spirit of mutual selfless service. And then you would go on and you would do all your work meticulously, because you know that any work you did that was slovenly would run the risk of having this negative reaction all the time. I was once at a retreat on the Big Island up on Volcano at a place where Dalai Lama comes and gives retreats. It's a Tibetan center there. And I was teaching, and I taught for a number of days. And I had this little tiny monk's cell in a corner, you know, of near the shrine room that I crowded into my tall form into every day for sleep. Just barely lay from one end to the other, and that was the length of the room, you see. So at the end of the retreat, I took my small amount of belongings out from under the bed and packed it, you see, and was going away to get in the car to leave. And then all of a sudden I thought, oh gee, I forgot that baggage tag that I ripped off my bag, crumpled up, and since there was no room for a trash box in that room, threw on the floor, saying, I'll get that later. So I was in the car, packed up, ready to leave. And I thought about that. Oh, I left one thing undone, you see. Well, someone will get it, it's no big thing. Oh well, it's going to bother me, You have to do everything karmically pure. So I went all the way back up and trudged up the field and up the stairs and went up there and bent down and picked up that piece of paper and looked, and there was my sacred cloth left on the bed. I would have gone off and flown to another island, you see, and lost it, left it behind. So every little thing, attached like that, and then you begin to do all your work meticulously, whatever it is, and not leave any strings untied. And try and do your best to save yourself the suffering and anguish that comes from work done slovenly, in any kind of slovenly manner. Then you want to do work done in even-mindedness. Wretched are the result seekers, but also any work that you do in a restless mode of mind will give you a restless return, and any work you do in a lazy mind will give you a lazy return. So like attracts like. So you're going to have to be very careful to enter into all work sattvically. See, otherwise, decline. I mean, Vivekananda was so bold, and he didn't know so much about our great attachment and need to work, you see, in the West, in America, have to go to work, my boss says so or something. So he would just tell us, don't even go out the door if you're not in a sattvic state of mind. Don't enter in to the marketplace unless your mind is, and so that would be impossible for the Westerner, wouldn't it? But then what is possible? Make sure that you get up early before you go to work and put your mind in a sattvic state. Then go out, you see. It's not like, check the barometer. What's my mind like? As if I had some sort of watch on that said, you are now Rajasic, you are now Tamasic. You see. But meditation is that. So you look in, you say, what am I like today? You see, I'm kind of a little bit unfocused. So let's see if I can do the mantra here and bring it together. See. Let's see if I can become Tadrupa. See. The real Tadrupa, please stand up. That is, may I be like the very form of Brahman. Do everything like Brahman does, you see. Which, by the way, is formless and actionless, so it's going to be an interesting task. So even-mindedness is sattvic mind. Is, if you remember, the very last entry on the chart we studied yesterday with Holy Mother on it, upekshanam. Upekshanam. Even-mindedness. Now do work done in failure or success. You see, you must do that work whether you fail in it or whether you succeed. So that really doesn't have anything to do with you or your state of mind. No matter what state of mind you're in when you leave the leave the home in the daytime, you will have to do work, and that work will either fail or succeed. So you're not to take account of that. See. You're just only to do the work in the best way you can, and then when it succeeds or fails, you just walk away, see, knowing you did your best. She who, since birth, has ever led me on, from passive trouble to perfection's goal, mother-wise in her own sweet and playful ways. She who has always and ever illumined my understanding, she, my resort, she, my refuge, whether my work overflows with full fruition or with none. That's how Vivekananda put it in his poem to Divine Mother. One that probably we haven't memorized here yet like we've memorized some of the others, but that's one that my teacher, Swami Sheshananda, used to always recite when he offered a flower to Holy Mother. She who since birth has ever led me on to passive trouble, perfection, goals. So I was, what's he saying? He would mumble things in front of the altar. So I looked that up and found it, and that verse, was very precious to me. So it ends, whether my work overflow with full fruition or with none. So you do the work in even-mindedness, meticulously, free of karmic accrual, without the desire for results, in the house that Ramakrishna built. So in failure and success, you go ahead and do it, and it's just like if you get sick. Father of Yoga says, don't react to the sickness. Reaction is the problem, not the sickness. Sickness will come to everyone, but some react to it, and then a few don't. So karma is right there, you see. If you don't react to it, illness doesn't have any purchase anymore. All illness comes from the mind, not from nature, not from the body. It starts as a seed in the mind. So if you can quell it in the mind, see, where it has its start, then what will happen out here but perfect health all the time? See? And the body can die, but you don't. See, body can catch a cold, you can't. See? So then you just follow that. So you see, karma yoga is really very Advaitic. There's not a big chasm between meditation and action. Let's shrink it, you see, and begin to see it how it really is. Action in inaction, and action in action. They truly know. See, got a great master like Krishna telling you that, then there must be something to it. Then you do all work as worship. And that's, of course, how Vivekananda put it in this day and age. Do all work as worship, and all labor as love. That's one of his great sayings, you see. So all work is worship, and all labor is love is putting together action and bhakti, isn't it? So you should do all your work in love. In love with what? The work? No. Work is futile. I already told you that. In love with God. In love with Mother. Shakale tomari ichya. Ichya is will. It's her will that everything happens. And I must make my will one with her will. And then I can go about working and be protected from the mother of all dissension. And then, if you can manage it, and this is a more mature step, do all work in knowledge. Of course, those beings who can learn the mechanics of their job and master them have the easiest and best time. And they may lose their job, which is the reason for some of these other even-mindedness and stuff. But as far as actually actuating the job, performing it, doing all work meticulously and all that, if you have knowledge of all the mechanics, then work will become almost second nature to you. Somebody asked me yesterday, oh, you have a new CD out, and you have some cello parts on it. Do you still play the cello at your age? I said, yeah. Do you practice? No. I'm not a professional anymore. I quit the professional scene when I quit the symphony. So basically, I do all my practice when I record, I said. See? So I sit down, I start playing, and, comes back slowly. It's run so deep in my mind how to play an instrument that it only takes a few minutes and I've got it all back. See? It's all, you've already done it. Whatever mastery you've attained in your particular field, it's already there in you. And lo and behold, it was there before you even started practicing. That's why you were good at it. So it was just a matter of practice. Practice makes perfect, which is philosophically questionable statement. Perfection is before practice. But nevertheless, you can bring it all back, you see. Bring it all back. So that's knowledge in you. Knowledge of scripture, knowledge of meditation, knowledge of how to act, knowledge of how everything is based in love. You see, knowledge of all the four yogas is in you. And you shouldn't leave them separated, just like you shouldn't leave the A, the U, and the M of Om separate. Your waking, your dreaming, and your deep sleep state separate. See, those are all integrated. Brahman is an indeterminable mass of pure conscious awareness, indivisible. Statement from the Upanishads. Therefore, take what's outside and what's inside and render them into one. Because that's the way they started off, and that's the way they are, always. Then pass your time contentedly and be free. Meditate on that state of oneness. Don't just leave everything separate and everything's in its separate category and a separate pocket and so forth, but actually practice the art of integration, realize the innate oneness of things, and then live contentedly and be free, knowing, living in that oneness. What about that? not just speaking about it, or even just maybe considering it one lifetime, see, but actually living in it. So work done in knowledge. If you don't have knowledge, then strive for it in this lifetime, so that it will be there in any future lifetime for you, or maybe will end all your life, hopefully end all your lifetimes in ignorance. And finally, work done free of attachment. People can get attached to any kind of work, even altruistic work, even religious work. So they get attached to it. And you can get attached to the knowledge that allows you to work too. See, you don't want to just get attached to scriptural knowledge, see, but you want to actually have the experience of what you're studying, as Sri Ramakrishna was saying today in the Gospel. So those are the laws of karma yoga as they can be put into an Ashtanga package for you. Now let's look across the board. You know the 8 limbs of yoga already, so I probably don't have to run them down for you. But quickly, they're the yamas and niyamas, things like nonviolence in thought, word, and deed, truthfulness, non-coveting of other people's goods, other nations' goods, if you get my gist, and moderation in all things, or continence, and study of scriptures, austerity, love of God. You see, the yamas and niyamas themselves, if you look at them closely, could be placed in the 4 yogas in nice little areas, you see, somewhat overlap. And then you have asana, the correct posture. What is the correct posture? You've been seeing me in it for the last hour, and I haven't moved, and I feel fine. I don't feel like moving. So you can achieve ekasana, one posture. That's the whole purpose for asana, as stated by Shankara in his Vivekachudamani. One posture, ekasana, eka means one. And sit in that for forever and be completely content, you see. Otherwise it's shasha/vashaha. I can't get my breathing together. It's anga me jayatva, my limbs, my angas. I don't know where to put them. My pockets. You see people walk around, hands in their pockets. So, anga me jayatva is restlessness of limbs. So everything finds its place perfectly and you feel perfectly relaxed. That's one posture you need to attain. If you need to do a few other asanas to get there, fine. But don't wander off into asana, vasana, samskara. Asana means postures, vasana means desire, samskara means an impression you ran deep into your mind that every time you sit, you want to change your position into another. You want to twist your body into different pretzel shapes. Why? If all work and all action is futile, then isn't all movement of that kind futile too? Is it going to get you enlightenment? Not through 100,000 acts or 1,000,000 asanas can you reach enlightenment, says Shankara, an enlightened soul. But only through knowing Brahman, not through progeny, children, not through riches and wealth, but only by knowing Brahman will you reach enlightenment. So these are the knowers of Brahman who come back and tell you, give you a sort of shortcut, a cut to the chase kind of. And as far as asana goes, why be a tree with a burnt out dry tree with limbs, you see, flapping in the wind. Just sit in one posture and meditate. Sit in one posture and study. Sit in one posture and breathe. Sit in one posture and love everything that you see as a manifestation of Brahman. Sit in one posture and eat. Yes, and if you'd rather have television and God vision, then sit in one posture and watch TV. The children, you see, go there. They're all over the floor watching TV. What are you doing? Sit like this and watch it with me. And they sit up. You get so much more out of TV, you see, if you can sit like this and just as a witness watch everything go by. And your spine feels better too. So that kind of look at the at the correct posture is important. And of course, there's a chart called mental asana that I've recently composed, which shows you all the different mental postures you can practice. That's much more healthy for you than physical postures. Usually, there's pretty much one mental posture you want to develop too. I am Atma Brahma asana means this self is Brahman posture. You see, your mind gets into a posture that says, I'm nothing else but Brahman. And so is everything I see. They asked Vivekananda, have you seen God? He said, I've seen nothing but God ever since I've opened my eyes. And neither have you. See? So we're looking at God all the time, but we're not seeing God. God in form, God beyond form and formlessness, everything is Brahman. That's the Vedanta Siddhanta, the final conclusion of the Vedanta. So, something about asana. Then there's pranayama, correct breathing. And somebody asked me at class in San Francisco, at satsang last week, about pranayama, if I should breathe. And I said, basically, the breathing is one thing, but knowing what prana is, knowing what operates your lungs is more important. The fact that your lungs are pumping in and out all the time is no great feat. So if you sit and watch your breathing process as the Buddhists have you do, that's a beginning only. Or the Hatha Yogis, you say, well, let's do some breathing exercises. But what the Jnana Yoga wants you to do with breathing exercises is to trace it to the source. Know that A of Om is your in-breath, the U of Om is your held breath, and the M of Om is your out-breath. Now you're connecting it to something profound. Now you're connecting the prana to something very profound. See, and that's where we will go later, after the break. Everything about prana that you need to know right there. Where it's headed, where it comes from, and how to culminate it in Shakti. The Shakti is the purveyor of prana. Where does prana come from? It comes from right out of the Atman through the mind. And it uses everything that the mind does to think and to produce worlds is facilitated by the prana. The great Garuda bird of prana that Vishnu rides. You see. So it's going to be an important step to master the prana. Basically, the Upanishads, in fact, the Kundalini Yoga Upanishad it's called, wants you to start right there. Okay. All of this is nothing, as it were. Well, right there is where you start. You get a hold of the prana and everything else comes into, on both sides, comes into control. But that's for a practitioner. For a past master, they've already got control of the prana. That's how they got into the body consciously, you see. But those who didn't have control of the prana, they got into the body unconsciously and they woke up in it. And now they're saying, oh, I think I better get enlightened here. You see, I think I better find a solution for my suffering and so forth. So they have to get a hold of the prana because they didn't do it in a past lifetime. Else they would have been born with it. See, past lifetime scenarios and the wisdom, the dharma on it is very important. You have to at least consider it. The one lifetime scenario just leaves you bereft of any sense to the whole picture. You're stripped of any deeper sense of why one person was born an imbecile, another a scumbag, see, and another an enlightened soul. God did it. Well, I wouldn't worship a God like that. Devil did it. Let me meet the fellow. See? Have it out with him. See? Christ did it on the cross. Vivekananda said, I would not want to subject anyone to pay for my karma with their blood. I'll pay for my karma on my own, thank you. In the East, Christ is an exemplar. In the West, he's a savior. A savior you depend on. An exemplar you try and emulate. Be thee perfect as thy Father in heaven is perfect. Seek thee first the kingdom of God, and all else will be added unto thee. I mean, he was an exemplar. He was telling you the path of truth. Long before Christianity was born, long before the Bible was formulated. And long before the church fathers in the 4th century took out all trace of karma and reincarnation from the Bible on purpose. So pranayama, correct breathing, is much deeper than just watching the lungs go in and out. You connect it back to the word, and you then have all the triputis come forward. See, like Puraka, Kumbhaka, and Rechaka. So you have it all in wisdom. You have it all in wisdom. Jnana Yoga is in effect with your practice of the yamas and niyamas. Then everyone falls down there, pratyahara. Oh, I'm truthful. You see, I can study the scriptures. You see, I have a good postures. You see, and I can breathe. Time to take your senses off the objects. Oh, fuck. I can't do that. And if I can do it outwardly, I can't even do it inwardly, you see. I might be able to do it outwardly. I'll give up food for a week and show everyone how I can live without food. You see, I can fast. But I can't do it inwardly. See? The minute I sit to meditate, the great yoga, the minute I pull out my tail feathers, you see, and start to wiggle them to try and get myself back on course, I fall flat on my face. And I start thinking about what's for dinner, even though I'm fasting. The mind, the human brain. You have to make a friend out of it and get it on your side. So pratyahara, the stumbling block, that 5th limb of yoga, is so hard to master. But once you get the mind free of thoughts and thinking process, you see, and you can go into a peaceful state. And you can do that even if you're not a master or an adept practitioner. When you're sattvic and you wake up in sattva, you go meditate, oh, this is easy. Next day, where did it go? You see, why am I so restless? Why can't I stop my mind from thinking? So that's, you're at the behest of the gunas, under the auspice of the 3 modes of nature. But when you sit in rajas and master rajas, when you sit in tamas and master tamas, then you flexed a muscle in the mind. See? If you just meditate only when you're sattvic, you know, I think I'll try and escape my karma here, you see. I'll meditate only in sattva. I'll check my barometer, say, you are in sattva today. See? Okay, now I can meditate. And you wake up the next day, you're in tamas. Oh, I don't think I'll meditate then. So you never get the experience of facing off against the devil. See? The devil is in your mind. Get thee behind me, see, Christ said about it. So you face off with tamas, you face off with rajas, and you master them, and that day that you master them in meditation, you can do it again another day, you see. You bring in the possibility of always remaining sattvic. And you prefer sattva. It's too much trouble to fall out of it. You know what I mean for this double entendre, right? Too much trouble means too much trouble. It brings too much trouble, and it's too much trouble to go there or get back from it. So I'm now, you know, preferring to be in sattva all the time. I think I'll just remain in balance. Not imbalanced, but in balance, see. So that's how you develop that subtle muscle in meditation for transcending tamas and rajas, which is the covering power and the distorting power. that we talked about so much yesterday in class. That is avarana and vikshepa, shaktis, connect directly with tamas and with rajas. And the prakasha shakti, revelatory power, connects directly with sattva, balance of mind. So we seek that equanimity of mind that Karma Yoga wants you to have, even in work. See, and you don't do a work without it. That is, if you can meditate in tamas and rajas and get rid of it, you can also find yourself in situations where you're going to have to work in rajas and tamas in order to attain sattva in work. So remember, we're talking about ideally, and then we're talking about the necessity of where we are right now on the path. You see, so gaining experience in those difficult things of life is is worth mentioning, because it's the way most people have to proceed. The next three limbs are just samyama, basically, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. If you can concentrate, you can meditate. If you can meditate, then you'll have samadhi. And when you do have samadhi, concentration, meditation, and samadhi become one thing, and you can put it on anything, anywhere, anytime, and get the essence out of it. That's how important samyama is, and we've been studying those slokas in the third pada on samyama through the email course that SRV is offering very deeply, going into what Vedavyas said about them, father of yoga, going into what Vivekananda said about them, and then my own running commentary on them. That's a long series of lessons, some 86 lessons long now. In fact, the 86 is about to come out to your email address, so those who want to partake of that, you can start in lesson 1. It's always a cycle like everything else. Only a cycle that helps you get off of lower cycles. Now, how about comparing these points of Karma Yoga and Raja Yoga? In Karma Yoga, you study and practice the lower 4 limbs of yoga. But in in Raja Yoga, you study and practice the upper 4 limbs of yoga. So pretty much karma is there in your actuation of the yamas, niyamas, asana, and pranayama. That's all pretty much in the realm of action. But you begin to enter into the realm of true meditation when you begin to work with those attachments in your mind. Desires, brooding, ignorance, doubt, fear, the things that ruin your equilibrium, see, in yoga. You fall out of yoga. Getting in and out of yoga is a phase that's rather painful. Once you've had it, you want to keep it, and then you find out that there are things that are keeping you from it. And so that's irritating, see. Bliss, ananda, is supposed to be unalloyed and uninterrupted. And so if you taste it, and then you fall out of it, it's twice as bad as if you had never tasted it. See? Just like for a great artist, you see, an inferior artist may make 100 bad brush strokes, you see. But the superior artist just makes one, and that one is more agonizing to him than all the 100 were to the inferior artist. It's, that one, just becomes the worst part of the painting, and it spoils his equilibrium, and it spoils his satisfaction in the work. So he has to, and in that regard, then you have to adjust, as they say. Now, the second entry there, in Raja Yoga, in Karma Yoga, you strive towards achieving mental oneness in action. But in Raja Yoga, you strive towards dissolving the mind's vibrations. Dissolution of the mind stream. Does it sound familiar? That's the name of our new book in SRV. Somebody wrote yesterday and said, I want to come and live at SRV and enter into a deep study of dissolution of the mind stream with Babaji. So people are hearing that, having some sort of remembrance of the art of that, and wanting to learn it and actuate it and make it their path. Make it their method. See? The path is broader, but make it their method on the path. And there may be many methods, but that might be the main one to get you into samadhi, to get you into concentration, meditation, samadhi, to bring samyama to your own possession. See? But as far as karma and work is regarding that mental oneness in action, you have to have your mind into your work in a meticulous way, right? So that's going to necessitate that you be very focused. You can't think about God when you're thinking about work. See? You can try. It's a nice ideal, but it might be rather romantic. You're fully concentrated in the work. If you're a seer, you don't need to keep God in mind because you are God. See? Don't forget that. The great worker who is one with Brahman is doing the work, doesn't need to keep God in mind. Is he going to keep saying to himself, I am Atma Brahma, I am Atma Brahma, like a mantra? A Mahavakya is not a mantra. A mantra is meant to calm the waves of your mind. A Mahavakya you say once, and that's it. Maybe for a lifetime, or once a year. Or when you see forth 100,000 people die in a tidal wave, you say, I am Atma Brahma. You see, all is Brahman, I am Brahman. So, otherwise you're in work, then you are the worker, you are God, you are the work. You're the worker, the work, and the desire for work has all been given by Mother. See? But if that's not the case, then you have to keep your mind concentrated on the work and let God fall to the backdrop. You know, people talk about the mantra, oh, I do it on the bus all the time. The mantra you gave me, Babaji. See, and I say, well, that's good, it's good. Protection and all that, you see. But do you do it in formal sitting? Well, not very often. So that's where you really want to do it, you see, in formal sitting. And because that's when you're trying to meditate. That's your hour of God. I'm trying now to practice oneness with God. I'm not trying to practice oneness with action. Mental oneness, right? That's for when I work. So, there are unhealthy separations, and then there are some very healthy separations. Some differences are to be accepted. Some differences are to be denied outright. Separateness of man from God, denied outright. There's no separation between God and man, creature and creator, God, man and spirit, you see. Nature and spirit, there's no separation, they're one thing. But some things are to be denied, you see. And other things are to be accepted completely. So in that regard, that disparity, that distinction that happens between work and divine reality, you need to be there for each one of those. In meditation, fully concentrated on divine reality. Use the mantra if you need it, you see. In work, you're not meditating. You're going to meditate while you drive a tractor or a bus through a city in Calcutta. Oh, I think I'll put on the nice music, and but on the CD cover it said, "Do not operate heavy equipment listening to this music." So everything has to be rightly discriminated, and that's the Jnana Yoga. It's the yoga of discrimination, discriminating wisdom. The next entry there, Karma Yoga, as we said, wants you to engage in action as duty and worship, free of all motivations and expectations. And Raja Yoga rather would have you perform all action in a meditative state so as to avoid karmic accrual. So as once turned, the key fits in the lock and turns the opposite direction in the case of Jnana Yoga. So therefore you minimize any karmic effect by doing it in wisdom, as we said. But in Karma Yoga then, you want to make sure that your work is done for the sake of others. That's called Yagya, sacrifice. Krishna mentions that in the Gita as being at the very top of the tier. Out of the Vedas come sacrifice, you see, and out of sacrifice come the rains and all that. It's this big cycle that goes on cosmically all the time. And sacrifice occupies a very high state in that list. So it's selflessness, but it's also duty. Duty can be the midday sun that burns the very vitals of humanity, as Vivekananda said, but it's necessary for a time. And so, your duty is to worship the ancestors, is to worship mankind, is to worship the gods and goddesses, is to worship the teachers, the rishis, and to worship the Trinity. See, that's all yagya. Everything you do is for them, and not for the self, as we were saying. Self doesn't exist. It's gone now. It's just struck by lightning. See? The Martian disintegrated it with his ray gun. Gone. Then recitation of the mantra to calm and master the restless mind. That would be japa practice in karma yoga atmosphere, right? You're going to calm and master the restless mind. So there's a kind of action and inaction that goes on there, as compared to in Raja Yoga, recitation of the mantra to merge the mind in a non-dual state, which is its higher facility. See, you'll find it very helpful. So you do the mantra in formal sitting practice, and all of a sudden the beads fall from your hand. You're there. See, so japa practice is a means to an end. See, when you get that mind perfectly centered, not in a sattvic state, then sattva becomes a diving board, springboard into non-dual reality. You can launch yourself into higher levels of awareness, and that's where you'll find peace and bliss, love, light, Om. All these special fruits of spiritual life, which are much different than the fruits of earthly life. Finally, devotion to the path of action for the purpose of serving God and mankind, as compared to devotion to the path of meditation to bring enlightenment to all beings. Nicely put there in this contrast between these two. In karma yoga, you are devoted to the path of action for service. All work is worship. But when you put that same devotion, that is the bhakti path, you see what I'm doing here? I'm bringing the other yogas into these two. The bhakti path, when you put it in the atmosphere of Raja Yoga, meditation, it's devotion to the path of meditation to bring enlightenment to all beings. They ask Shankara, why so much knowledge, and what about devotion? And he said, my devotion is to Brahman. My devotion is to knowledge. That's my devotion. Your devotion may be to forms and so forth, but my devotion is to formlessness. So it's not that I have no devotion, it's just that doesn't look the same as yours. So there is that. Now that is the passive yoga, and the passive action and inaction, and giving you the whole bird. You see, bought the whole farm, cow and all. You see, but here you're buying the whole bird. Bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, meditation, and action in the body. You have all four aspects in what's called, or has been called, the synthesis of yoga by Sri Aurobindo, or Purna Yoga in the Upanishads, or integral yoga and so forth. Those people are in the know about the import of realizing the oneness of yoga. Yoga is oneness. It's not some oneness you have to get into. Just like realization of the Atman is not something that you have to do, it's something that you already are. So you put it in different ways of speaking in yoga and in Vedanta and so in Buddhism and so forth, but it really is just all pointing to that innate oneness, intrinsic oneness, natural, spontaneous oneness, which is the nature of Brahman and your nature too. So here we want to stop for our break and come back in about 10 or 15 minutes. We welcome back our live streaming audience, a number of computers, and people as far away as Hungary, like my nephew, Adam, who was watching yesterday and sent me a beautiful email about how inspired he was there, going through his early college courses, to have some of that Jnana wisdom coming through and being able to take time off and as we have been studying, integrate that as yogic style into his life. We're not monks. There's not very many beings on earth who are of the monastic temperament. They have their own specific mode of concentration on these teachings, but for the householder or for beings that are more like forest dwellers, they also have their own modes of taking in and working out this wisdom. And you really probably better not to look at that as superior or inferior, or maybe even in gradated stages. It's just a matter of practicality of where any soul is or chooses to be in the radiant land of illumined mind. See, it's just all that's needed is to realize that that's where you are, that this here is Brahman, and Brahman isn't in the future or in the past only, but that mainly it's right here and upon us right now, which was our founder, Lex Hickson's favorite mode of being, to remind us all how this eternal moment is happening right now, and our concentrated awareness is here, if we can bring it there and keep it at that level. The more you strive to keep it at that level, the easier it becomes, because you're blazing a trail or reblazing a trail and cutting back the growth all the time. So anyway, welcome to the 16, 20 people that gather here in the weekends, and to our number of computers. May this message that SRV champions spread far and wide, even long after we leave this space and time and move, as it were, into the radiant realm of Ramakrishna Loka, or wherever it is that we think we're going. All movement is non-actual. Coming and going is all mere nonsense, as Vivekananda said. Where's the time when the soul will come and go? And where's the space to which it will come and go when all of time and space is in the soul? Couldn't put it better than that, showing yourself up to be a staunch and deep non-dualist, Advaitist. And all else then carries on, moves on in as it will, hopefully as an emanation from a source that's steeped in the four yogas in an integrated way. So there are certain things we keep in mind in order to affect such a high state of mind. And if we're ever in doubt, then we go back to the revealed scriptures. The ordinary scriptures don't tend to provide any profound solution for very long. Ordinary scriptures would be defined as those that talk about anything other than your oneness with Brahman. The revealed scriptures are always focusing on Brahman, Brahman as Brahman, Brahman as indivisible, Brahman as eternal, and Brahman and its relationship to the apparently individualized soul. Note the words, apparently individualized, not actually indivisible, separate, but always one, but apparently individualized. So that's a revealed scripture, and they say those are like the Upanishads, of which we are studying right now. And we just went through Sloka 12 in a very deep way yesterday with the four beneficial attitudes and sensitivities and so forth, and then today the same sloka in terms of the four yogas, especially those two yogas which are called dhyan and karma, or raja and karma, meditation and action. Inaction and action, if you want to put it that way. So let's move on from Sloka 12, having taken it apart, and go to 13 and 14, which I've already covered by chanting this morning, Om Nicho Nichanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman. That is, that one is the eternal among non-eternal things. It's the intelligence of the most intelligent ones. yet it fulfills the desires of the many somehow, even though it's ever one. Sort of like our meditation chant that goes Te Dhyan Yoga Nugata Pasyan. It's right here in the beginning of the Upanishad, see, Svetashvatara Upanisad. Te Dhyan Yoga Nugata Pasyan. Practicing the yoga of meditation, Devatma Shaktim, Svagunayar Nagudam. They beheld the Devatma Shakti, the hidden reality in everything, Svagunayar Nagudam, that was covered by the gunas. Yaha Karanani Nikalani Tani, Kalatma Yuktanya Adidishtat Ekaha, which had been veiled to them earlier because of the limitation of their own intellects, which is why they practiced the yoga of meditation. So, Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga, see, it's all there in every sloka. Some more pronounced and some more in the backdrop, but they're all there. And it's a wonderful way of proceeding when you realize that and you can apply it to all scripture study, Swadhyaya or Jnana Yoga. So that's sloka 13. Quick, we won't unwrap that one like we did 12. Number 14 is another familiar, na tatra surya bhati, na chandra tarakam, that is, na chandra. It's not the light of the moon. Na tatra surya, it's not the light of the sun. And it's not the light of fire, and it's not the light of lightning. It's that one light of the Atman that makes everything shine. Those are just little lights and distant glares, you see. But the light of the Atman is in all those. The light of a billion suns, Koti Surya Galaiye, as the song sings, you see. Ramakrishna came down and he's the light, like the combined light of a billion suns placed into a mold. You want to hear it? Yes. Beautiful. If it's here. Oops. Put very nicely in this way by Swami Shardananda, who is my teacher's teacher. Stimita chit sindhu bedi oti loki jyoti gana koti surya galai chancheda kanti jino maya pandita kandavare vujke lila kevareno ujala valakaveshe akanda gara praveshe. Stimita chit sindhu bedi. From the depths of timeless awareness rose a magnificent mass of radiant effulgence in a form piercing the surface of the ocean of consciousness. It is as if that resplendent form had been fashioned by combining a billion suns in a mold. Koti Surya, a billion suns. See. Then Maya Kandita Akanda Vari, that is, beloved companions, who can understand the sport of Maya, this limitless depth breaking into a limit? Who can fathom it, you see? Today, all we know is that today the boundless infinite has penetrated the subtlemost realm, appearing there in the form of a bright, irresistible child. That's a description Swami Shardananda gave of the taking on of a form of Ramakrishna, or of any avatar. See, a billion suns get fashioned into a mold, as it were. So that's what I was speaking about before I got blissfully sidetracked to this beautiful song. In this sloka of, there the sun shines not, nor the moon, nor fires, nor lightning, much less this tiny mortal flame called prana. So that beautiful sloka is also occurs here in a slightly different form in the Svetashvatara Upanisad. Everything shines after that. And by that light, all else shines. So any light you see, you should be able to see that as the effect of a cause, and that cause as the effect of another cause, until you find yourself back in the ocean of light, till you penetrate the surface of the ocean of consciousness and dive deep into it. In meditation, which you can do every day in every sitting, all you need to do is dissolve everything that stands in the way of it, i.e., dissolve the mind stream. Because the mind throws up all sorts of things. Earth, air, fire, water, and ether, which came out of subtle earth, air, fire, water, and ether, called the tanmatras. Tasting, touching, hearing, smelling, and seeing, which came out of the subtle senses in dream tonight. You see. So there's 20 right there you have to dissolve. 20 tattvas, 20 principles that are far out, you see. Not like far out man, you see, but far flung. And they all get connected where? To the mind. You know. These senses connect to the brain, but those senses connect to the mind. The kingdoms of heaven within you are the mind stream, you see, flowing with particles. One gave rise to the other, that gave rise to the next, in a chain of transition, of evolutes, Lord Kapila says in the Sankhya Yoga. There's been a chain of evolutes outward, and there's a reverse chain of evolutes back in, a transition. Nobody talks about the reverse chain of evolutes back in. See, science on down, it's just Big Bang out. And who knows what caused the Big Bang. There the sun does not shine, nor the moon, nor stars, nor fire, nor lightning, nor Big Bangs, they might as well put. Where is the power that caused the senses to see? Where is the power that caused the elements to manifest? Where is the power that congealed the elements into an object? But in the mind. So, cause and effect tracing. It's called utpatti, seeking origins. And it's been there since Lord Vashishta taught it to Ram, one of the oldest avatars on record, even before Krishna. I can sing it. You want me to sing it?
Yeah.
Stop talking, Babaji, and just sing. So, those two slokas then were a quick study for us. And the way everyone's smiling and nodding their head, I can see that they're all well understood already. That is 13 and 14. But in 14, let's take a quick pause to take some of it apart, because even that mortal flame doesn't shine there. The prana tends to disappear in highest realization. However, here on earth, many of us are not noting the prana. And it's one of the missing elements in our understanding. Prana and tanmatras are missing. That we have subtle senses that are in the mind, and that we have subtle elements, and that those subtle elements and senses are being operated by prana. Man does not live by bread alone. Christ wasn't talking about the Almighty Father, in my opinion. He was talking about prana. It's unseen. Almighty Father isn't the cause for anything. Cannot be the cause of anything. It's causeless. Hands off. Mind can't think it. Intellect can't find it. Senses can't see it. Mouth can't describe it. Mouth open, already mistake, as the Zen koan says. So you fall back. Mind, senses, tongue, everything falls back and cannot approach Brahman. So it can't be the cause of anything. So what is the cause of all this? Movement, action, thought, birth, death, soul transitioning from other worlds to this world and back, or from deep sleep to dream and waking and back. What is the cause of all that? The operator is prana, the great Garuda bird upon which Vishnu sits, and he visits all worlds in a flash that you can't even see, that the mind can't even think that fast, you see. Yet it does, but you just don't see how fast it goes by. So prana then can be seen and must be seen. That's why I created this chart. And we've been through it before. It's always good to see it again. And it's probably good to start with that other quote on prana in this Upanishad. Svetashvatara says, controlling the heaven-aspiring senses and the life force with the help of the mind and intellect, the immanent soul so regenerates them as to enable them to manifest the infinite self-luminous light of awareness. Beautiful. Controlling the heaven-aspiring senses. Most people are just trying to control the object-oriented senses. Maybe most aren't even doing that. They don't care, you see. But the ones who care start to try and withdraw the senses from their objects. But what about the heaven-aspiring senses? The moral people, you see, the ethical ones, you see. They've got heaven-aspiring senses, right? They think, I should go from this state to a state of more enjoyment that's unclouded by suffering. Even though the teaching is that suffering is more beneficial for you than pleasure. Because suffering drives you deeper. Pleasure keeps you on the surface. How are you ever going to penetrate the ocean of consciousness like Ramakrishna did if you're attached to pleasures? Was he attached to pleasures? Did Jesus tell you to keep the world? Did he tell the rich man to keep his riches? Birds have nests, foxes have holes, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head here. That sound like a matter lover, a pleasure lover? A goddamn pleasure lover, as my dad used to say. Is that what you're going to turn into? So the heaven-aspiring senses, you transcend them. And the life force, prana. You see. What is life force? Élan vital, the French call it. What is life force? What is the power that makes the eye see, that's different than the eye? Power that makes the ears hear, that's different than the ear. What is it that connects the eye to fire and the ear to ether, the tongue to water and the nose to earth, and air to touch? What connects the five senses to the five subtle senses, the five gross elements to the five subtle elements? It's all prana. It's the king of the gods. Even Indra falls flat on his face without prana. So who is the real Lord of the gods here? See? Yet, lo and behold, that prana is insentient. The only sentiency is Atman and Shakti. Shakti operates the prana like a spider that sits on the web. We had that yesterday, right? Spider sits in the web, projects the web, gads about on the web, pulls the web back inside of it. She knows every movement by any touch on her web. She immediately goes there, you see. Faster than the eye can see, faster than the mind can comprehend. That's prana, that web. But there's an operator of the web, the one who sits on it, the purveyor. That's Divine Mother Shakti. So this chart shows you how prana begins to refine so much as the soul uses it to go inward until it becomes Shakti. And actually you see that prana is just an emanation of Shakti then. All along you were thinking it was some sentient force itself. And that's why many people get caught in the fact that prana is God. There are actually people along the paths of philosophy who, like certain schools of shamanism and occult, people who follow occult and mysticism and so forth, that actually get caught there in the prana. That's it. I found it. It's the occult, it's the mystical, it's the hidden, it's the sensational. It's mystery mongering at its best, Vivekananda says. See? Mystery mongering. So then one follows prana. One has to first contact it here, and that's why we were talking about pranayama in the first half of the class. I breathe. So you could say, what is the power of the eye to see and what is the ear to hear? But you also say, what is the power that causes me to breathe? And why do I stop breathing at death? Is it just a matter of lungs? My lungs decided to give up? I find that funny. See, I met a Zoroastrian priest on a plane sitting next to me on one trip. A rare thing. Telling me about Zoroastrianism, you see. And so he's saying, yes, Babaji, what's the difference between you and your dead body? Put yourself next to your dead body. And the difference is, one's animated and one's not. One has prana in it and one isn't. But then I said, yes, but where does the prana come from? What is, it can't just do it by itself, you see. Because prana has this one defect. It waxes and it wanes. You're healthy and then you're not. You're young and then you're old. And that's all the prana either investing the form or leaking out of the form. So the yogis, practice sublimation and moderation, even renunciation or continence, celibacy even, so that they can keep that power young and fresh and alive and always in the body. See, until they themselves choose to give it up. Then they'll take that prana, what's called psychic prana, and they'll ride it out of the body like a Garuda bird. It's not all weak and pale and waning and, gone at the end of their life. What are you going to do then? I think I'll realize God now. See, is it time? Yeah, prana, giddy up. Why aren't you moving? No. It's an old mule by then. And it bites you. It's like an old camel. It hisses and spits at you when you approach it. So your mount isn't very good. All the gods and goddesses have mounts in Hinduism. They all have vehicles, vahanas. Ganesha rides a mouse. You've seen an elephant on a mouse? That will get your attention. So this Garuda bird is our prana. This is our vehicle. We need to tame it. All the silly animated movies that are out now about taming your dragon. I've got a dragon for you to tame. Come, youth. Come, young people. I'll show you how you get in and out of the body at death. I'll show you how you can enliven your life and get into lucid dreaming and back out again. And be vital. So, elan vital, it's vital energy. And its one defect is then it will weaken in the body, and the senses can't see anymore, and the ears can't hear very well. Hey, what's that you say? Shiva doesn't hold a horn to his ear because he's deaf, He's listening to Om. Got a very specific instrument there. So it's not like Shiva has lost his prana. God forbid. What's that you say? So there the sun does not shine, the moon, nor fire, nor lightnings, much less this tiny mortal flame called prana. There means in the Atman. It doesn't need the prana anymore, unless it wants to take on the 5 sheaths again. Ego, intellect, mind, prana, pranamaya kosha, and annamaya kosha, the body, physical sheath of food. If it wants to take those on, then where's my prana? Come, dragon. Let's go. Giddy up, dragon! No whip needed. It's sort of like in ox taming, right? Bridle, whip, saddle, they lay somewhere else. Now he just sits alone in the hut and the ox is outside grazing contentedly. So, in that way, you find this first level of prana is food, annamaya kosha, and it's a very raw level of prana, and it's very gross. Gross here doesn't mean ew, like horrible. It means the opposite of subtle. The quote there, because I went through all levels of prana as I saw it going up this coil. You see, if you go to the Kundalini yoga teacher or a good guru and you want to awaken your Kundalini, first question you'll ask was, if you're talking about things, all of a sudden later, have you awakened your coil yet? Have you unfolded, unfurled your sail? You see? Is your coil unwound? So he wants to know if you've begun the process of awakening Kundalini from coil to coil. See? So based on that idea, I've stretched out this spring and put the different levels there that the prana goes through, and then found quotes out of each of the scriptures. This one about food says, "When prana pours down as rain, all creatures are delighted, knowing there will be food." Nowadays, in an opulent society, we say, "Oh, it's going to be bad weather." See? But in the old days, they said that's a sign that the Vedas are working. The sacrifice is in place. It's raining. Now we get food. We can enjoy food. We can be healthy. We can take the prana from it and nourish ourselves. Not just our bodies. That's called mukhya prana. It's good health energy. And people stop there. Oh, I've got good health now. All the time the dragon's getting older, you see. His head's beginning to droop. You're not feeding it with good energy so they can go inward. Inward, inward, ever inward. So then when it does, and still at a rather raw but primal level, you get the 5 elements. And the quote is, "He burns as fire. He is the sun. He is the cloud and the wind, earth and matter. He is what is and what is not, and also what is immortal." So that is, he connects to the immortal itself. See? Divine Mother reality. But down here at the primal and raw level, he's subject to those changes in Maya that he finds himself in. He means prana here. Sometimes you'll find the Upanishads are even talking about Brahman as prana. It's a little bit confusing sometimes. But that's how, in high regard, they regard this prana. But the prana they're talking about is a prana that has gotten so refined that it's fallen into Mother's hands again. See, we'll get to that. 3rd level is vital, still in the raw category, but it's vital. It's body and senses. As we were just talking about, the eye, power of the eye to see, the power of the ear to hear. They call that indriyas. So when you get to the senses, really, you're beginning to get to little gods. The senses are all considered little gods in our tradition. They're invested with a high degree of prana, in most cases. Of course, that's going to be based on karma and samskaras. Some people are born with bad eyesight or bad hearing, or they age prematurely, and so forth and so on. Diseases come. So there's some karmas in there that are getting worked out. But basically, a normal, healthy being, is going to be invested with a good amount of prana, good eyesight, good hearing, and so forth. Their senses are healthy. And body and senses then have this suggestion of a deeper prana, and that mukhya prana is to be followed, is to be refined. You take prana from food, this level, and you subject it to mantra first. Food has 5 defects in it, not whether it's organic or not. That's a later development, you see. But the 5 defects are that when it was grown as a seed, we probably start with the seed and say there were defects in the seed, but let's not go there yet. When the seed was actually planted, it didn't get enough sunlight or enough water, or there wasn't enough of certain elements in the soil, you see. So that's the first defect. If anything, that's the organic defect in the teaching of early on. Second defect, I have a chart on this. I should have brought it. Second defect is in the person who planted it. Had in their mind, say, this will be a harvest, I'll make a lot of money on it. So immediately it's got a subtle defect in it. In other words, it's not done for sacrifice for others, is it? It's not planted that way. What to speak of spraying it and all the things we talk about nowadays, the real defect was in the person who planted it, wanting to make money, get rich, whatever crazy idea was in his mind. It wasn't done for the sake of sacrifice. Pure and simple. It was self-serving and the mother of all dissension that was in his mind. Second defect. Third defect, in the harvesting, you see. Then he harvests it and wants to send it to market, and it passes through all sorts of hands, all wanting to make money from it. Fourth defect is in the preparing of it in the kitchen, where either the restaurant owner or the house owner is reading a murder mystery while he's cooking his food. See? Or he's had a bad day and argued with his family and his wife, and he's there busy making food. Karma yoga isn't being followed. Don't go out the door without sattva in your mind. Why should you cook food without sattva in your mind? You're just going to plant the impediments that are in your mind into the food for others to partake of. There's a story Sri Ramakrishna gave about a man who was taking a cow across the city to slaughter. So as he was going across the city, he saw his friends there were having a Shraddha ceremony to offer food to the ancestors. So he tied the cow up outside the house, went in and started partaking of the food of the Shraddha ceremony. Sri Ramakrishna told his disciples, don't take food from the Shraddha ceremony. You're monks, you shouldn't do that. So offering food to the ancestors is worship of the ancestors. It's very limited, and you're talking about karmas between the ancestors and the humans. And there's karmas in the food you partake of. So that man ate some of that food, and he took the cow after eating and went across to the slaughterhouse and delivered it. See? So who gets the bad karma for killing the cow? The man? No, the people too share it, you see. Whose house he stopped at and whose Shraddha ceremony, the food that he ate. They all share in the death of the cow as a kind of karma. And this is the collective karma of things that's always spreading around amongst people, as if they're eating maya instead of food. See? Hello, I'm having good dish of maya here today. You want to come and share my maya? Why, sure, I'll bring some of my maya too and we'll mix it in. Okay. Happy karma. I mean, goodbye, you see. So collective karma spreads rife amongst society. So that defect in food is the fourth defect, and the fifth defect is what you put in it when you start to eat it. If you're not eating it, sitting like this, or sitting with a straight back, in full consciousness, with your mind concentrated on the food, with an idea, with an end, to take that food up the spine. So first you bless it, and remove the 5 defects from it. They're subtle, so it takes a subtle thing to remove them. Mantra is subtle. So Brahmarpanam Brahmahabir Brahmagna Brahmanahutam Brahmayavatena Gantivya Brahma Karma Samadhina. My teacher said it faster than that. That was your blessing at meal. 5 defects are gone. And then you, with it blessed, you partake of it. You see, most of it has been offered to the gods. Now you're offering it to the little gods. Taste, touch, smell. See? And they get satiated. They get satisfied for a little while. And then that you meditate, and you with an idea to bring that food further up the spine. See, the subtle spine doesn't mean just your physical spine, but it means those chakras that are adjacent in another dimension next to the spine, called chakras and so forth, or lotuses. And then that prana gets refined and refined and refined, and that's what we're headed here. We're headed to a level that's ethereal or refined. And that's where rebirth and ancestors come in. The quote here is, through one of the great nadis, that means a great nerve, not a nerve that you can see with the senses, see, taste, touch, hear, and so forth. Through one of the great nadis, the prana carries the soul to virtuous worlds by virtuous deeds, and to sinful worlds by sinful acts, and by both to the world of men. So that's the rub on that level of ancestor life. It's exchanging places with the ancestors in a Kala Chakra, wheel of birth and death Buddha talked about. So what you're going to want to do is take it further, take it deeper. But at least there, you're aware of the nadi, you're aware of an energy that's beginning to come up, and you want to refine it further, because it's not yet ojas. Ojas is beyond vital energy. So it's actually spiritual energy that you're, and this is a subtle residue that you're extracting. Sort of like sesame seed has oil in it, but you'd never know it until you got together 10,000 seeds and invented a press. You see, got a few drops. Then you'd know there was oil in it, and you'd know how nutritious oil was. So that subtle is this energy that's beyond mukhya prana. where people don't see it. They just stop there at healthy living. Oh, I'll live 80 or 90 years of healthy life. Good enough for me. Then death will come, fine. I'll enjoy. My heaven-aspiring senses will be happy, because I'll go to heaven afterwards too. But beyond the rebirth, ancestors is one thing, but rebirth is attending there. So then you come back into the body, unawares of the food you ate before and the process you could have gone through to refine it. You only went so far, so you come back attached to food. Mother's breast is your first recourse, you see. Food. I'm happy when I have it, I cry when I don't. And then I live another life. And health is my ultimate aim, you see. Longevity, psychic power. That's my highest aim. But what about the level of celestial prana, when you start looking about sacrifice, yagya we talked about, in the gods? Then he says, O prana, thou art the best carrier for the gods, and the first offering to the ancestors. Thou art Indra and Rudra, and the Lord of all lights. And then all of a sudden you're getting beyond the ancestors to the celestials, and beyond the celestials to the gods. See, the heavens have different divisions in our tradition. It's not just earth, heaven, hell. It's earth, lower heaven, higher heaven. And inside the lower heaven and higher heaven there are many lokas. The lower heavens are for those beings who are destined to go back to earth. And the higher heavens for those who could have an opportunity to transcend heaven completely and go beyond to the gods, and beyond the gods to the rishis. See? So higher heaven is for those who have some sort of desire in them for higher enlightenment, you see. Some sort of desire is has been born in them. They're thinking in terms of enlightenment their whole life, even if they don't reach it. And that's Bhurbhuvasvaha, see. Janaha, Tapaha, Brahma, Satyaloka, those are worlds of no return, but those three are worlds of return. You see a great moral giant or ethical giant come back, you'll know he probably attended the highest heaven in a previous lifetime and didn't make it beyond and had to come back to earth. He's got all this prana, so he can make a very big impression on the world of people. But that world of people is all ephemeral, transitory, changing, passing. And you can pump all the prana you want into it, and it'll continue to be changing and passing, because prana itself is changing and passing. It's insentient. You're the sentient one, the operator of it. And that's what you need to realize. Then beyond that refined level of celestial, you get to a level of divine. This is all subtle now. You're getting into the work with the subtle body, which are the kingdoms of heaven within you, and that's mind, psyche. There it says, in the heart there are 101 nerves, and in each of them are another 100, and these branch into 72,000 more. It is in all of these, the all-pervasive prana moves. All-pervasive prana. Note the difference between the all-pervasive prana, the upward-moving prana, the downward-moving prana, and the prana itself, that invests the organs and moves the blood and so forth. This is the prana that's all-pervasive. It's in everything. So now you're at a very high level of working with the 5 pranas in one form, and now you are able to perceive inside you these avenues. In every nerve there's 100 more, and in each 100 there's 72,000 more. The nerves are getting subtler and subtler, the prana is getting subtler and subtler. It might as well be Shakti now, see, that you're thinking about, rather than prana. Prana has become psychic prana. Psychic prana has led you towards this realization of how the Divine Mother moves through everything. Shakale Tomari Icha, the song we sang. Still coursing inwardly with this now refined prana, the soul encounters the universal, which is the first tier of the pure as compared to the subtle. And the cosmic intellect, or God's mind. Sometimes they call it Mahat. There, the Upanishads say, the wise one attains immortality, having known the origin of prana, its advent, its all-pervasiveness, its fivefold distribution, and its internal aspects. There's a knower of prana, right there, in that quote. All of those 5 things are known about the fivefold prana by this knower of prana. And that's at the level of God's mind. So you can see why Lord Brahma is the sattvic one, is the one whose projection is most sattvic, hardly working with what you could call prana or even psychic prana. He's working with Shakti. Shakti itself comes and informs him. See, okay, time for another cycle of creation. Here's the seed. Prana is still far flung from that. You see, it's gonna show up as celestial, ethereal, vital, and primal and gross levels as it spills out into the lower cosmos, into higher heaven, into lower heaven, into earth, and even into the patalas, the 7 hell realms they call in Tibet. Then when it comes most pure, there you finally can assign it to the Shakti itself or to the word Om. And the quote there is, when the 3 matras of Om are left unconnected, there is mortality. But when they are connected to the prana, they are rightfully employed. What is peaceful, undecaying, immortal, free of fear, the seer attains that by the means of Om. So there you have the mother of the word. See, and there you have the word itself, and there you have the cosmic mind connected to the word. Someone was asking me yesterday about that difference. And you say, well, we talk about it as if it were, something we could actually see, the difference between cosmic mind and Om and God, or God with form and God without form. But that distinction is so minute there. You might as well look at Lord Brahma and say, that's God. You might as well look at Shakti and say, that's God. You might as well look at Om and say, that's God. So when the beginning was the Word, but you're at the stage, at the beginning the Word was with God, and you haven't yet gone to the state of the Word was God yet. Those 3 tiers of John saying that Christ told him. So we think that maybe we could somehow measure that. But we're in such bliss and such peace at that time, is the line of demarcations aren't even noted. It's not like you could separate those levels. They're so subtle. Causal, see, is what the only word we can find in English. It's a causal level of existence. And at that causal level is when you tend to disappear into formlessness and then come back, and tend to disappear and come back. Just like a person would fall asleep during class, you see, and then wake up, and then wake up again, and then fall asleep again. Just like that, a high seer who is attained of mind, would all of a sudden come into cognizant of the humming sound of Om and the Trinity, be so beautifully entranced with that, the mind would just tend naturally to go back into formlessness, just like you would fall from dreaming into deep sleep and back. And that's a causal level, Sushupti, going into Turiya. Gaudapada would talk about it in terms of the 3rd and 4th states of awareness. And it's natural then to go formless. It's a completely natural thing. It's not something you're striving for. See? Like in the bathroom or something. See, it's just so supremely natural, and you're just naturally elevating. And then when you come back to form, it's as if those are the same thing. It's God with form and God without form. Might as well be no distinction or no difference. And that's what this tries to convey. There's a beautiful statement I found in the Prajna Upanishad, which was what I was looking for a long time and didn't find, but I came across it. Where does the prana really come from? Of the Atman is born the prana. Like a shadow of a man, it is spread out on that. It comes into the body by the will of the mind. The one who knows the imperishable Atman, in which rests the mind, the prana, and the senses, verily becomes omniscient and enters into all. one of the most beautiful quotes about prana I've ever found to explain its origin, which is so hard to find. If it turns into Shakti, then where did it go? You see, and Shakti turns into Brahman. Shakti herself, in the form of Bhagavati Durga Devi, says in the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, when all disappears in Pralaya, then I retreat into Brahman. I am inherent in Brahman. I hide there, see. And then when the cycle comes out again, I come forth. So Shakti herself will merge back in Brahman because that's her resting place. In the heart of Shiva, the Tantrists would say, you see, she's dancing on his chest. That really means like he's the flower and she's the fragrance. She's come out of her heart. Other people are giving silly definitions about why she dances on his chest, with silly connotations. But basically the idea is that she lives in his heart, and when she comes out, she's the dance of the nomenon. You see, the nomenon's become the phenomenon. So pretty soon it's going to give rise to all this in projected form, and then it's going to be withdrawn back in. And the prana is that vehicle by which she's doing it all, at different levels of this coil. As far as the individual is concerned, might as well be gradated in stages. But as I say, when those stages get most subtle into a causal state, that's where natural samadhi begins to happen. You don't have to think, I'm seeking samadhi anymore. It just begins to happen to you. First with wisdom, then with bliss, then with the disappearance of the ego and its reappearance. See the sine wave for that. See the 5 states of mind Patanjali talks about. First is dull and sick. See, it's like a valley. And then it's very active, so it's like a jagged line. See? Then it's sometimes balanced, sometimes imbalanced. So it's a line like that with a peak, then a line, then a valley. A line with a peak, a line with a valley, you see. If you're a scientist, this is your sine wave language, you see. But in a steady, equal mind, it's ekagra, it's just one line, flatlined. You've died. You see, you're flatlined if you're in the hospital, right? So spiritually, your ego has died. And you just there's no self, as I said. There's just awareness. And you're that. But when you start to go into higher samadhi, that line is there, and then there's a space. Then there's another line, and then a space, gap. So you're falling out of ordinary awareness. That ordinary awareness being natural consciousness. Your realized state of mind in which you still exist as an individual soul. That's sasmita samadhi. That's asmita, with ego. But the ego is so ripe that it's not a problem anymore. So it begins to naturally experience its own death. Then it comes back and suggests itself again. Then experiences its own death again. And that's what they want you to practice in Zen Buddhism when you sit on the zafu. You'll go to a Kundalini teacher and say, have you unwrapped your coil yet, you see? But you'll go to a teacher of that kind, and they'll tell you, they'll ask you if you've refined the prana into Shakti, the Shakti into Brahman. See? Has you died on your pillow yet? They'll ask you. Has your ego died while you've been sitting there? Have you experienced that yet? No ego. So however way it's expressed in whatever tradition you happen to be deeply diving into at any given time, that results in this absence of anything but consciousness itself. Your true nature, they call it. Atman, or Paramatman. Now, the last quote at the bottom is all we have left. I mean, we could say here that the superconscious state, Shakti and Om, will then lead to transcendence, and that's Kundalini Shakti herself, or Paramashiva, if you want to put it in Shaivite terms, or Paramatman in Vedantic terms. Ramakrishna actually would always put those together. There's Mahashakti, and there's Paramatman, and there's Paramashiva, and there's Paramatman, and there's Mahavishnu. You know, as if all of these were the highest Shiva, the highest Vishnu, the highest Shakti, the highest Atman. So that you would be aware that there was something of a transcendent nature in each of those systems. Kundalini Shakti would be how we would put it there. Crown chakra, 1,000-petaled. Koti Surya Galaiye. All the suns and the subtle suns and the causal suns all melted into a mold, which had no boundaries. So the last quote at the bottom here, we say, like the rays of a setting sun, when a man sleeps, all the senses and their functions merge into the superior God called the mind. Then he hears not, sees not, smells not, tastes not, feels not, and they say, quote, he sleeps, unquote. At that time, the fires of prana alone remain awake in the city, holding the two oblations of inspiration and expiration within it. You're still breathing, you see. Very slowly, though. And, the prana is still having its play. It's still awake. The hawk sleeps in its own nest, but the only thing still awake in that city is the prana. But it's in a state of brooding, as it were. It's in a state of potential. Then all of a sudden, start breathing again, and you wake up. See? Or you breathe a little faster, and you're dreaming. So consciousness is moving through these three states of awareness: Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, Swapna, Jagrat. And all the while in Turiya, all the three states of awareness wrapped around it and permeated through and through it in all pervasive form that you begin to see right about there. And after you see the all pervasive and you identify with it, then you are it. The game of cosmic tag has reached its culmination. You're it. So, always good to look at the phases and permutations of the all-pervasive prana and to, as we said in the yoga chart previously, to start there, if we're Vedantists, at least. If not, already start here, at concentration and meditation, to look back and take account of that all-pervasive prana and in its four other modes. If you can seize the upward-moving prana, like the one that takes the breath in, right, Puraka, and you can, and that's as much as you know, then you don't know very much. But if you know that upward-moving prana, if you get on it, can also take you on this journey, then you begin to know everything. So, and that's the force and the power, the sublime nature of prana, as psychic prana, or as mukhya prana, as psychic prana, finally as Shakti, and then finally as Kundalini herself. All connected. So, time to uncoil your coil. Wake up that note, a song that had its birth far off, where worldly taint could never reach, that you hear in mountain caves and forest deep, whose calm no sigh for worldly taint or lust could ever dare to break, where rolls the stream of knowledge, truth, and the bliss that follows both. So sing high that note, sannyas and bold, say Om Tat Sat Om. Om Tadrupa Tat Sat Om. Thou art that form of Brahman. And therefore we look deeper into the moon does not shine there, neither the sun nor stars, not even prana in its raw, in its primal, in its vital, or even its ethereal and celestial forms. That does not shine in the Atman. Only Atman's light shines in Atman. By its light all is made luminous. In the remaining 15 minutes, we may be able to take one more sloka then, part in part. And next week is a retreat in Seattle on Lord Shiva, We've just been talking about him. And then the following weekend we will be live streaming. So next weekend will not be a live streaming from any place because we'll be in retreat. But weekend after that, we will look at Sloka 15. So let's mark our texts, those of you who are following the text, at Sloka 15. We will take that up. Let's end with a chant here. Om Tatsnayo, Om Tatsnayo Ravrinni Mahe Gatung Yagyaya Gatung Ye Nupataye Daivi Swastarastu Naha Swastir Manusebhyaha Urdvam Jigatu Bhesajam Samnavastu Dvipade Samchatushpate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we make a heartfelt offering into the Great Self. May we always delight in this offering. May we always revere the Lord and Mother of all sacrifices. May divine blessings be upon us. May peace be into the entire human race. May healing, well-being, and abundance also abide among us. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.